Hello again, everyone. This is Chris Scherer. That's Robert Harding. This is the Citizen Sports Weekly for Thursday, August 27, 2015. I have returned from vacation.
It's about time.
I know. Although it was a staycation, I didn't go anywhere. Except if you count the Dairy Queen grand opening in North Syracuse, Cicero area there, that was kind of fun.
Yeah.
A little plug for the DQ.
An unofficial sponsor of the Citizen
I
Sports
love, hey man, you can't go wrong with a Blizzard, folks. Anyways, so we're going to talk about a couple sports topics. We're going to start right off with one that I wrote about in today's Citizen newspaper, which is online at auburnpub.com if you want to check it out. It's my column about the, I don't know if we call it a debate. I guess you call it the debate. The debate that Auburn High School wants to put in, or at least the athletic department wants to put in artificial turf at Holland Stadium, which is behind Auburn Junior High School on Franklin Street. And the school board is going to be discussing this, and they got a presentation, and the athletic department has put together a packet of information about what artificial turf, how much it would cost, the upkeep, and everything else. So this has been discussed in the past. It has been shot down. It's gone up on as a capital improvements project. It's been shot down by voters because they don't want to see their taxes get higher. And I can understand that. You don't want your taxes to get higher. But when you look at what the cost would be to the individual taxpayer, it's really it's only a couple dollars extra a year, which when you think about it, really is not much. That being said, in my column today, I said that realistically, I don't think it's fair that taxpayers themselves should be the ones who pay for all of this, that I think that we should try to have a public-private partnership to try to raise some of the money to pay for the artificial turf for Holland Stadium. So I think that if the funding can be arranged where it really is negligible to the taxpayer, I don't think there's any reason why you don't put in artificial turf. And when I hear arguments about, well, there's more injuries in artificial turf, well, that's the old AstroTurf. This is field turf. It's a lot safer. If you look at all the NFL stadiums in the Northeast, MetLife Stadium with the Giants and Jets, Heinz Field with the Steelers, Gillette Stadium with the Patriots, they all use field turf, okay? NFL teams are using this stuff, and if the NFL teams feel that it's safe for their players, I'm sure as heck thinking that it's safe enough for high school kids. So the old arguments that, well, you're going to have bad knees and things, that's old AstroTurf that nobody uses anymore, okay? Syracuse University has field turf in the Carrier Dome. I haven't seen a slew of knee injuries with Syracuse University football players, okay? And yes, there are concerns that they use this like little rubber balls inside the turf to make it cushier and everything and softer. And there's talk that you see these rubber balls come up that if players are inhaling them, it could cause cancer. Maybe it's a little early, but I haven't seen any incidences of this happening either. So I think that the player safety concerns are warranted and needed and are welcome. But really, when it's all said and done, it's time to put in field turf in Auburn. Auburn is one of the few school districts of that size in Central New York that does not have artificial turf. It could be used. I'm going to let Robert get a word in soon. I'm sorry there, Robert, but I want to finish it up here. But you can use that. If you put in field turf at a beautiful facility like Holland Stadium, and I think it's one of the jewels of high school football in the Northeast, if not the country, for an old-style stadium, not a bunch of bleachers, metal bleachers around a field, but a real, honest-to-goodness stadium, that you could host Section 3 championships there. You could even host state championships for different sports at Holland Stadium. And it would bring in money and it would bring in revenue for hotels and restaurants in Auburn. I think it'd be a boon. I think people that don't like this, they're not looking down the road enough in the future. They're just looking at today. They're not looking down the road. So put in turf. Okay, Robert, now it's your turn.
Well, I'll make a couple of points. One, I think that this is, in terms of making that facility better, a must. I think, given the fact that, as Auburn school officials have pointed out, Auburn's really the only school of its size not to have this feature at its stadium. It's necessary, and you raise some interesting points about the funding. I think the school should pick up the full tab of it, because really, there's a lot of complaints about, this is a waste of taxpayer money. Well, is there a cost up front? Absolutely.
Mhm.
But going forward, if you're saving money, is that a waste?
Yeah.
I don't get that rationale at all, and it seems that one has won over the years. But people aren't thinking long term. They're just seeing the initial price tag, and that's where they make their
Yeah.
decision. They're not thinking of the long term benefits, as you pointed out, with hosting the various other events that could come to Auburn. I speak from a little bit of experience here because the school district I went to, for high school and middle school and so on, Medina High School, back in my last 2 years of high school, we played. I played soccer. We played soccer on our turf field. The football field, much like Auburn, I guess, when they did some renovations at the stadium. Our stadium was shut down for a year so they could install field turf, and I was fortunate enough to be one of the first classes to play on that field, and it's great. Mm-hmm. And the nice thing about it is, a lot of sports shifted over there, like soccer, for example, field hockey, lacrosse, football, of course. We had baseball, softball over there, but it also drew in some of those same sectional and state championships opportunities you talked about. We hosted sectionals for field hockey, for example. Brought in lacrosse, I think, a few times too. So, there's opportunities here, and to just shoot it down and look, based on the price tag, I think isn't giving it the full view, the full review it deserves. This is a good opportunity for Auburn to not only improve its own facility, but to give opportunities to the entire region, to the state, and make some money off of it. I mean, that's really the potential here, but we've got to get past that first wave, and that's really where it's been stuck for several years.
And like I said, it's just something that it needs to happen, not just from a standpoint of being competitive or being able to use the advantage of drawing in other games and things like that. The thing is, if you look at Auburn High School, like boys lacrosse, girls lacrosse, these teams can't even practice outdoors for the first few weeks of the season because the turf, the ground, the grass is just, it's muddy, it's soft from winter. They can't get started. It does affect them competitively. With field turf, these guys can be practicing middle of March, whether it's snowing or not. You just plow the stuff off, boom, there you go. These kids can practice earlier for the end of the fall season. Once you get to late October, it starts getting cold, early November, okay? You can't play on those grass fields in wintertime conditions or late fall conditions because it ruins everything, and then you got to pay more money to fix it. So to me, a turf field eventually will pay for itself. It can be an economic generator, okay? It just, and again, why are so many other bigger districts going to turf? Okay, I mean, I think there's a reason why they're doing it because it makes sense and it's the right decision. So, to those people that disagree with me, I respect your opinions, but hey, man, I'm telling you, you're just not thinking big picture here. You're just looking very focused in. Oh my God, it's going to cost $3 million. But like I said, you get some maybe a state grant. You do some private fundraising. Auburn, like I said in the column, has stepped up in the past to save sports. 2001, there was a budget shortfall. Auburn had no sports. They were going to have no sports. They raised all the money in literally less than a month. $12,000, I believe, was the amount. And they had spring sports that year when Auburn won the Section 3 boys lacrosse out. First and only time that's ever happened. Without that fundraising, it doesn't happen. So I know Auburn can do this. I know that the people of Auburn, and the people who don't live in Auburn anymore, that went to Auburn High School, that are graduates, no longer living in the area, I'm sure that a lot of them would give a few dollars. I mean, realistically, if 50,000 people just kicked in $5 each right there, there's $250,000 right there, right?
Yeah.
So there's a start right there. So like I said, it can be done. You don't need all the extravagant frills. I'll give you that. You don't need a video scoreboard. You don't need the fanciest stuff, but you need the basic stuff that gets the job done, and that's what really we're looking for here. So
this reminds me of a couple things. One, I think back to a game I played my junior year, soccer game, and it was in October, mid-October, I think, and it was cold. It was and rainy.
Yeah.
It was like 35, 40 degrees out, rainy, and we're playing soccer. And thankfully we were on a turf field because if we were playing on our old grass fields at the school I went to, the school itself and the fields were built on an old swamp. So the fields would be a mess when it rains.
Yeah.
You could play on them, but it would be wet, it would be soggy. I mean, injuries could happen, you plant your leg wrong and, God knows what could happen. With turf, we didn't have that concern. It was a little wet, but you weren't running through puddles.
Yeah.
It was spongy, so, it absorbed some of that and you could run, just fine and make cuts. So, that's one point. But, the other thing too is, you mentioned it with, the ability for other teams and, the practice, to practice during the cold weather. I mean, that's an advantage, and hopefully people see that and realize that this is a lot more. There's a lot more opportunities here than we realize. This isn't just a field for multi-million-dollar payment. This is something that can really help a lot of teams. Save some money over the years and really benefit Auburn.
You could rent this thing out to other local high schools like Port Byron or Weedsport or other schools that, maybe Weedsport is in the state playoffs, okay, in football, and it's early November, mid-November, okay? They can use that field to practice on, and Auburn gets money for it. I mean, Auburn would have to charge Weedsport money for that, okay? CCC, Community College, okay? If they want to use it, they're next door. Boom, there they go. They've got a place to play. They've got to pay rent for it. Auburn already pays Skinny Alice money to use their turf field for practices and things. Okay, so again, think long term, think big picture. Okay, let's not be narrow-minded here, folks. Okay, unfortunately, Auburn has a few people, and as I said the word few, that are very narrow-minded. I don't want to pay rent. Think about it. The children of our school district deserve better, okay? I always was taught that you want your kids to have a better life than you did, to have it easier than you did, okay? And I think if we put in artificial turf at Holland Stadium, I think we're doing that for our kids. And realistically, that's what it's all about in the long run, is our children. And they count more than anything else. All right. End of rant, as Dennis Miller would say. All right, we're going to talk NFL now. That's really Auburn and I. That's our bread and butter. It's what we love to talk about. We could discuss NFL in the middle of May. Heck, we've talked NFL in the middle of May.
We've talked in May. We've talked in June.
Yep.
Talked in July.
We're going to talk about our two favorite teams, Dolphins and the Bills here.
The Panthers and Jaguars, obviously.
No, God. No, my Lord. So I'm just going to talk about the Dolphins real quickly. They have a preseason game against the Falcons. Sun Life Stadium has been renovated. The first installation, the first part of the renovations are done. The field looks great. The stadium looks amazing. I wish I was going down there for a game this year because it looks really cool. And the big question is the Dolphins, their left tackle, Jonathan Albert, is not ready to play yet. Brandon Albert. Thank you for correcting me. Brandon Albert, not 100% yet, still recovering from his knee injury. And the guy who's been subbing in for him, Fox, is not able to play.
Oh, boy.
And because of that, they might have to put in a third stringer or even move over a guard to play left tackle. And there's a lot of Dolphin fans and also some South Florida sports columnists saying that don't play Tannehill in this game. I know the third game is a dress rehearsal. That's where the starters get their most time of the exhibition season. Plus, it's supposed to rain there. I mean, there's going to be a hurricane going through South Florida by around Monday, so it's going to be raining on Saturday. So do you take the chance? Again, if they're playing on turf, you wouldn't have to worry about that, really. But still, do you take the chance? And Tannehill's the one guy the Dolphins can ill afford to lose. So I would say, something? This guy's played very well in the first two preseason games. I don't think there's anything left to prove. I would rest the kid, okay? I mean, he's going to get reps in practice and stuff. It's not like he's going to sit on the bench and not do anything for 2 weeks. I would say you don't play him. Don't play him on Saturday. Let your second and third and fourth string quarterbacks do the bulk of the action. And then, like I said, this way you have nothing to worry about. Although I think if you do play Tannehill, you don't call any plays that's going to expose him from his blind side, okay? You roll him out to the right side, or you just do things where you're not going to put him in harm's way if you really want him to get that much game action. So, otherwise, I've been relatively happy with the Dolphins preseason. They're 0-2, but who cares? The second, third, and fourth stringers are the ones who've let those leads gone by. The defense has been okay, even though they've had some injuries in the secondary. The offense has looked very good. Optimistic about them. So we'll see what happens. So I'm just going to keep my fingers crossed they get through these next two exhibition games without any more injuries. Now for the Bills.
Yeah, the Bills are going into this weekend's game with E.J. Manuel as their starter. I actually
Yes.
found out that today. So, this will mean that all three quarterbacks who are really in contention for the starting job will get a preseason start. And, Manuel gets an opportunity after Tyrod Taylor last week, and, of course, Matt Castle in the first week of the preseason, to show what he can do with the first team unit. And, they're going to be a little thin. I saw today that Robert Woods isn't going to play. Of course, he's one of the Bills' big receivers. Same goes for Sammy Watkins, I believe, too. So, they'll be a little thin at receiver, but, they'll still have, the running back core there, and, of course, the offensive line, which is has been the big thing to follow, this season after terrible line play last year. The defense, not worried about it. Pretty healthy unit. They've lost a couple reserves to season-ending injuries, but what are you going to do? For the most part, the starters are intact, so they look pretty good. Really comes down to the offense, and we don't know who the Bills' starting quarterback will be. E.J. Manuel's still in this thing, and that's why this start coming up for him on Saturday is so important because he gets an opportunity after working really with the third teamers in the last couple games. He gets an opportunity to work with the first teamers and show us what he can do.
And that's why I like what Rex Ryan has done because each of the three quarterbacks has had a chance to start with the first team linemen and running backs and receivers and tight ends. So each of them have had a fair opportunity to earn the starting job. I think it'll be interesting to see who gets it. I really think it'll be Matt Castle when it's all said and done.
Yeah, I think it's I think it's tough. Castle didn't play the last game. Really it was down to Taylor and Manuel, and both of them played well. Taylor adds that, mobility factor in. Manuel's a little bit of that, but, Taylor has shown that he can take off and run. He had a 20-yard run, I think, in his first preseason appearance. So, it's going to be tough. I mean, Castle is certainly a veteran. He has the experience. He's been a starter before. He knows how to handle it. Manuel, obviously limited starting experience. Taylor doesn't really have that. So, it's going to be interesting to see how this folds out. One question for me is, will the Bills keep three quarterbacks on the roster? Because all three are capable. Do you keep Castle and Taylor and cut Manuel? Do you keep all three? That's really, kind of the you have question one, like who's going to be the starter? I think the second question right after that is, do you keep three? And, with kind of how the roster's shaken out, that might be tough to do.
Right. Robert, anything else you want to add?
I'm done.
We're going to wrap it up here, folks. Again, thanks for watching our video. We do appreciate it. If you like it, please, again, share the link. And until next week, we'll see you. Have a great weekend.